Hey, good morning. Here we are again. Week 3, no church services. I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of church because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about that. Some people look at a church building and think that's the church. Well, it's not. It's where the church meets, but it is not the church. Some people, maybe because of a bad experience in a church, and certainly those occur, think that, well, I'm just not going to be a member of a church. I'm going to stay home, read my Bible, and pray, and that's good enough. Um, Bad experiences at churches. Certainly those existed even in New Testament times. When we read of Jesus addressing the 7 churches of Asia, in most cases he was very disappointed in them. So yeah, that's a problem. Let's think about what the church is. You have an individual Christian, a plurality of Christians are Christians, but the collective noun for a group of Christians is the church. Okay? We understand that when we think about another picture in the Bible, that of the Christian soldier in Ephesians chapter 6. The plural, soldiers. The collective noun for a group of soldiers would be an army. We also see that in another figure. You have sheep. The plurality is sheep. The collective noun for a group of sheep is a flock. Same thing with a grapevine. Grapevine's a vineyard. So when we think that maybe we can be a Christian without being part of a church, have to ask ourselves, well, can I be a soldier and not be a part of an army? Can I be a sheep and not part of a flock? Can I be a grapevine and not part of a vineyard? Well, I guess you could, but that's not God's plan. That's not what he wants. The other thing that we ought to look at that I think is missed sometimes in churches is what the function of the church is. In Ephesians chapter 4, the text says that God gave gifts. And some of those gifts were men called bishops or elders or pastors. And their function was to help individual Christians grow into the fullness of the stature of Jesus Christ. Read that in Ephesians chapter 4, beginning in about verse 11. And they do that by helping people do works of service. What is that? Well, that's when people quit primarily looking after their own needs and demonstrate the type of sacrificial love that Jesus demonstrated in giving himself up for other people. When we look at those figures of a vineyard and a flock of sheep, one thing those things do is they produce things. Vineyards produce grapes, sheep produce wool, meat products, dairy products. Christians, the church, is also supposed to produce something, and that's those sacrificial works that are motivated because of our faith in Jesus Christ. So when we look at this idea of church, do we need to be a member of a church? Well, do you want to grow into the fullness of the stature of Jesus Christ? Because the church, the collection of Christians, is the mechanism that God instituted to achieve that very purpose. Now, churches can be disappointing, obviously. When we read the Revelation and Jesus Christ addressing the churches, there were problems in those churches, serious problems, false doctrines, lack of love, things like that. My point is that even though that may be the case in churches, we don't give up on maybe the most important thing that God created for us, the collection of Christians that help motivate us and encourage us and build us up and admonish us when we're headed the wrong direction. So we need to be a part of a church. And what should we look for in a church? Well, we ought to look for a church that's accomplishing its purpose. We ought to be able to walk into a church and see some people that are in the image of Jesus Christ. And if we can find that, say, well, this is where I want to be a member because I want to grow in spiritual maturity, and I can see that that's happening in this church, and I want to be a part of it. Well, I hope this helps you, and I hope that you spend the rest of this Lord's Day thinking about the things that Jesus did for us. And again, if I can help you in any way, I'd be glad to. Thank you.